Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. You've been very vocal in your support for President Trump's proposed tariffs. Give us a sense of why that is.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. But I believe that, Made in America is on a comeback. We all talk about buying Made in America. And instead, what's happened over the last several decades is that a lot of these manufactured goods are made elsewhere, whether it's Mexico or China. I remember back in the 90s, we talked a lot about free trade, and it all sounded good. But unfortunately, because of the advantages that other countries, or I should say manipulations that other countries would take advantage of their own labor. They, of course, subsidize their utility costs. They just play on a different playing field. A lot of those jobs left and went overseas. And so President Trump is finally, this is not a trade war that started by the United States. This is finally the United States saying, we're going to shoot back to those countries who have tariffs on the United States and the goods that we produce.
But a question for you. Obviously, it would take, in many cases, years for businesses to be able to actually build here in the United States. And then they're on top of that, further compounding it is the idea that, in China, they might be able to pay somebody $5 an hour to make a product that here in the United States, you'd have to pay somebody $35 an hour to make. And so in the end, for the consumer, does it end up costing us more?
Well, it's going to cost them more as well. It's not going to just cost Americans. I mean, I believe that we've seen years go by where we have seen agriculture, manufacturing, other sectors that have been hollowed out because of the unfair trade agreements or the trade policies with other countries. The American farmer is at a disadvantage in a lot of ways. One in particular is the Australian beef situation, where they've banned American beef since the early 2000s because of mad cow disease. We understood why they did it at that time, but here we are 20 years later and they still have a ban on American beef. I believe that a good partner is going to say, we don't need tariffs on American goods, and we're going to reciprocate that with zero tariffs. So what Elon Musk is saying, a zero tariff policy, I think is good for all of us, especially us and our allies. And it's only going to be beneficial for our constituents. When we have the opportunity to rebuild a manufacturing base and produce goods here in the United States, we'll be a stronger country for that.
You mentioned farmers. You yourself are a cattle farmer, and these tariffs, as you well know, could hit farmers especially hard. The American Soybean Association, for example, said the tariffs on China could cost soybean farmers $6 billion in lost revenue. That's just soybean farmers. Are you concerned if the deals that Trump wants to materialize don't? What comes then? Because what you're suggesting is it will be good for us if these countries agree, but there's no guarantee these countries are going to agree.
No, but I think you're seeing that most of them are coming to the table already. I mean, just remember, Lindsay, too, we just came through a 4-year period where we saw inflation out of control. And, coming from retail and manufacturing, the cost of labor, everything has gone up over the last 4 years. And so many of us are at our wits' end. Rural America voted for President Trump. And while this is going to be a bit rocky in some spaces, I'm hearing from other sectors like manufacturing. I just had a lunch today with a group of steel manufacturers, and they said this is going to be good for them. Automobile industry, we're seeing an increase in production in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at our GM truck plant. We're seeing the investment that's being made, almost $5 trillion in proposed investment in the United States since President Trump started talking about tariff policy. This is going to be good in the long run. Short term, a little bit of pain, but I think that these countries are going to come very quickly. He's not willing to give any waivers. And he's saying, look, these are blanket tariffs unless you want to come negotiate.
And you mentioned that, rural America overwhelmingly did vote for President Trump. Many people said it was because of the economy. And so when we're talking about eggs, fruits, vegetables, what's your message to your constituents who are concerned about paying more? That was, in many cases, the reason people said that they supported Trump, because he said day one he was going to bring inflation down. He was going to make the cost of everyday items, as we're looking to people going through grocery stores, he was going to make it more affordable. And so right now you have people who are not only anticipating now higher prices, but also looking at their 401ks and seeing how much money they're losing at the same time.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Lindsay. I mean, the last couple of days have been rough, but I'll tell you this too. I would rather see President Trump doing what he's doing and to setting the stage for our country to be strong economically, because we have a debt crisis coming at us soon if we don't do something. We had several outside voices coming here to Capitol Hill that Ray Daley being one of them, who's talking about the fact that we've got to get our deficit and debt under control. Our Treasury Secretary, that is his primary objective, is how do we reduce our deficits and debt because it is going to affect the economy. A stock market crash over debt default is catastrophic, and it's going to be almost impossible to recover from that for many, many years because the American economy is the strongest. The American treasuries have always been dependable, and even there's some instability there right now. But in the long run, this is going to be good. And I think, people talk about eggs. We've seen the bird flu across the country. We're addressing that. Egg prices are coming down. Once the American producer has the opportunity to compete with other countries and we can sell into our markets, then we will see a leveling off and a stability that's good for everybody.
Congressman Marlin Stutzman of Indiana, we thank you so much for coming on the show, Congressman.
Thank you.